people who needed to be neutralized and assassinated, and who later were killed.
And Chip, what'd you do with these documents, besides hiding them around the world?
I also published them in the Tatum Chronicles when I was charged with treason. I was told to give these documents up or I'd be charged with treason and be put to death or spend life imprisonment. So I called the Secret Service officers that came in and told me that were tasked to tell me this by the president, and I called them in and I said, okay boys, I've got the documents for you, come get them. In the meantime, we published this, sent it to the White House Library, sent it to the White House, to James Dorskin is his name, the personal assistant to the President, Clinton, sent it to Mr. Bush, sent it to others involved, and to Capitol Hill. And then I gave these guys the copy, the Secret Service agents, and they said, you just signed your death warrant. I said, kill me, boys. Let's go.
And I might also mention that you had some other papers and other documents you held back, right?
You know, over 25 years, I was able to compile quite an insurance policy. These documents are nothing compared to those documents. I feel comfortable in coming forward with these, and the only reason I'm coming forward with these, I had no intention of ever doing anything with these, but when they went after my wife, they went after an American citizen, and that's unacceptable in my mind. Going after other foreign intelligence officers, foreign politicians and all, you know, that's just part of the spook business. That's what we did in counter-espionage, but you don't do that against our own citizens. When you try to neutralize an American citizen, you've gone against everything I believe is right, and I'll do everything I can to expose the men involved.
Now, you have other documents around the world, right? You have videos and printed matter.
Videos, audios that have been placed on the videos, many video clips of different meetings I've attended, different orders being given, documents that have been put on the video. You know, technology is great, Ted. You know, I'd go into some of these high-level meetings, and because I was the chief of security for these groups, I would ensure that nothing's being bugged, the place was clean, so we'd sweep the place, and I'd keep my bugs going the whole time.
So you're the only one that had bugs
going?
The
The
only
one that had the bugs going.
Smart man, Chip Tatum. Okay, that's why you're live today, obviously.
That's why I'm probably one of the safest men alive right now, I think.
I would think so, because if anything happens to you, then these come forward, right?
That's right.
And Chip, I want to come back to this in just a minute, but I want to go back to Central South America, CIA drug running, et cetera, et cetera. Did you have any personal conversations with Ollie North after Fort Campbell?
Sure. On one particular occasion, well, on many occasions, Ollie was down there. I also called him through White House Switch and told him that I found drugs on board the aircraft. I said, you know, Colonel North, what is this? You know, we have drugs on board these aircraft. What are they doing on the aircraft? He said they were, excuse me, evidence bound for world courts to prosecute the Sandinistas.
How many tons of evidence did you have?
8.
8 tons? Couldn't they just take a sample?
Well, it got worse than that. I would go into these Contra camps, and here would be these large fuel pods that had the tops cut off, and they had they were gelling their own stuff there. You know, they couldn't get enough bazuco, which was the paste used to make cocaine. They couldn't get enough of it from the Medellin cartel that they had ties with coming up from Peru, so they started bringing bales of their own leaves and bales of little green pods. You know, I couldn't figure out what these little green pods were.
Who's they?
The man who was in charge of bringing everything up was a man named Ramon Navarro. He was dressed as a lieutenant colonel in some military. I didn't figure out what uniform he was wearing. Could have been a cabbie uniform, I don't know. But Ramon Navarro, and he would later be killed in 1991, just before he was scheduled to testify in the Noriega case.
And what about Ollie North? Besides your telephone conversation
Ollie
with
North
him?
was in country on several occasions, and on April 12th, even the Vice President Bush was in country. That
April
was
12th, what year?
1985.
And were North and Bush together?
Not together in the same encampment at that time, though. North was there, but...
So in talking to Ollie North personally, other than the telephone conversation, what was said in regard to drugs being brought in by the CIA and on the Army?
In one cocaine kitchen, as he was talking to Amir Amnir and another intelligence officer, he told them that one more year of this, and we can all retire.
Now, you heard that conversation?
I taped that conversation.
Oh, Very good. You taped that conversation.
Yes, I did.
And what other conversations could you tell us about as far as Ollie North is concerned?
Well, not only conversations, you know, Ollie was, he loved to be the center of attention, so one particular occasion we had him standing at a cocaine press trying to press, you know, pressing the bricks. In this Sandinista camp? I don't think so. It was, they called these the North camps because North set them up.
And how many such bases were set up?
There were about 5 of the kitchens that were set up.
Did Ollie North set them up?
5 locations. Ollie North is the one who supplied all logistical support for that, yes.
And when was the last time you had a conversation with Ollie North?
Last time I talked to Ollie North was in September of 1994. He and Felix Rodriguez called me in my office in Colorado. I'd gone back to Colorado, gotten out of the business, gone back to Colorado. 25 years was enough. And he called me and told me to give up the documents or else.
The documents that you had in hiding?
Those flight plans and so forth.
Yeah, but had you already printed
No.
You hadn't given them printed yet, okay.
No. I wasn't going to say anything. I was sitting in Colorado as just a little businessman, running a mortgage company, not bothering anyone, just wanting to raise my family.
What did you tell him?
I told him, are you crazy? If I give you these, for one thing, they're headed for the shredder, and for another thing, I know it's a terminal effort. There's no way. Let's go for or else. I'm always a fighter.
What did he say to that?
Well, he said, well, let me get someone else. And they called me back, and Bill Colby was on the phone. And I said, Bill, I said, you know, to give these documents up, to give all this stuff up is terminal. I said, you know, I'm going to keep them. And he said, well, you know, then we're going to have to hit your credibility. I said, okay, hit my credibility. What do you want me to do? He said, well, walk into the U.S. Attorney's office and just tell him you did something wrong. So I did.
What'd you tell him?
Walked into the U.S. Attorney's office. I wired myself some money out of an account down across the state line, and then into my corporation. Then I took it out, and put it into my personal account. And because in the mortgage business that can be considered
embezzlement.
Embezzlement. I told him that I participated in wire fraud. Arrest me, please. And so they did, but then they found out, once they put the attorney on it, they found out, well, you know, it's really not, the mortgage industry really isn't regulated in Colorado. I said, listen, I'm going to admit to this, because they said that they wanted to involve my wife in it. I said, but you guys have to promise you leave her out of this. They said, okay. I said, let's go forward with the pleading. So I stood in front of a federal judge, and I said, and he asked me if I did this, and I said, yes. But before I said yes, I leaned over and I asked the U.S. Attorney, my wife's going to stay clear, and she said yes. And so I said, okay, I'll sign the plea agreement, Your Honor. And he said, and it's part of testimony, he really didn't want to go forward with it. He said, you know, this really doesn't, and I said, Your Honor, believe me, I wired those funds, I took those funds, I spent them.
How much money involved?
$70,000 of my money.
Of your own money, huh?
Of my own money.
Okay, but they didn't leave your wife alone.
They didn't. They came after her, and so when I went before the judge for sentencing, I told him at that time, you know, I didn't want to go forward with it. I'd like to withdraw the plea. But it was too late at that point. He said, the thing to do is, after this is all done, you can go ahead and ask that the plea be withdrawn at the appeals court. And that's where we're at now.
And you're getting ready in a couple of days to go in. You've appealed it. The appellate level, you're going to have a decision in about 2 more days, right?
On the 24th of February.
Are you looking at prison time?
No, I don't think so. I've already spent 2 years of that time in prison, and I don't think that they want me back in prison. I really don't think they want me back in prison.
They want you to be quiet.
I was due to do 47 months, and the last thing they wanted was me in prison, simply because there were death threats against me in prison, and 2 NSA officers came in to see me when I was in prison at Jessup and told me that the warden advised them that there were people that wanted to kill me from the Mexican Mafia and the Crips and the Bloods, that I had crossed them the wrong way, I'd hurt some of their men. Actually, I didn't. I wasn't offensive toward them. They have their little scams that go on, and I wouldn't participate. So their enforcers, one of their enforcers, I broke his leg, and they didn't like that. So they had a hit out on me, a contract in prison to take me out. And the NSA came in and said, you can't allow this to happen. If you're killed, those tapes will come forward. And I said, that's right. And they said, well, you got to give us the tapes. I say, kids, are you crazy? And it's unbelievable. They send such young kids in. At least they could send somebody mature, you know, that I would have a little respect for. But they send them young and dumb. That's the way they do it.
Well, there's two factions in the CIA, I understand now. The graybeards and what do they call the other faction? The snot-nosed Bush kids?
Yeah, that's it. Snot-nosed Clinton.
Snot-nosed Clinton now, huh?
Snot-nosed Clinton.
Okay, Chip. So didn't they charge you with treason at one point?
Well, yeah. When I was held in prison before the trial that I went through, they told me that if I didn't give the documents up, I'd be charged with treason. And I said, okay, let's dance. And that's when I actually published this, gave them their copies, and went forward and right in the Tatum Chronicles. I mean, the Tampa Tribune caught on to it pretty quick, and did a big article. County inmate faces mysterious charge of treason. Well, you know, they knew they weren't going to be able to go forward with that particular charge, so they had to find something else. So what they ended up charging us with...
They couldn't go forward with the embezzlement charge, what you're saying.
No, they couldn't go forward with that. They couldn't go forward with the treason charge. So what they did is they brought in a man, a lieutenant colonel, who...
Not Ollie North.
No, Ollie North's campaign manager.
Oh, really?
Bill Lusinger. They gave him complete immunity. Actually, not complete immunity. He came in, he said, Tatum conspired with me to make a false statement. I embezzled some funds, but Tatum told me I could have them.
Got you for conspiracy again.
Got me for conspiracy because a person came forward and said that an overt act had taken place.
Well, now he'd been convicted himself, right, of embezzlement,
of bank fraud and embezzlement and everything
okay,
else.
and so what did he do? Make a deal with the government to get his sentence reduced if he come in and lie about it?
It's better than that. He was facing 20 years for his stuff, but if he came in and told a good enough lie, he would get 6 months and it would be expunged from his record.
Is he out?
He actually got 6 weeks, yes, and it was expunged from his record. And he didn't have to pay back the 80 grand or whatever it was.
So he's a rich man.
Oh, yeah.
Within reason, that is. Chip, before I want to let's continue now with the problems involving the court and so forth. Anything else you want to mention? They came after Nancy, your wife. By the way, let me mention, folks, there's a separate interview with Nancy Tatum, which goes into detail, and we talk about Nancy's new book, Joining Club Fed.
Joining Club Fed.
And that's worth checking out and purchasing and reading because that substantiates and corroborates what Chip is telling us here right today. Is there anything else you want to mention about the court proceedings?
Well, I think the important thing for everyone to know is the United States federal courts are not your friend. They're not, and the United States federal court officers are definitely not your friends, although they would like to let you think that they're on your side. They want to do everything for you and your family. So